Content creators are going to be replaced by AI. Not all of them, but I do want to talk about who and what and how you can safeguard yourself against being one of the ones that ends up being replaced. And this video will be mainly within the context of content creation and photo and video. So if you're worried that you might be one of those ones, keep watching, because there is one thing that you can do right now to future-proof yourself against the impending AI apocalypse doom. So imagine for a second you click to watch a video on the internet and you get this.
Day one of smashing a camera until Hasselblad sends me one for free.
Obviously fake, but maybe you're on Instagram and you see a video that has 1 million views and it looks something like this.
Getting ready to photograph a tornado from the inside. Woo. Wish me luck.
Both of those intro clips I was able to generate with a new tool that just came out this week from Google. It's their VEO3. The subscription costed me something like $170, and I basically created both of those videos in less than a minute. With absolutely no skill, I was able to make those videos using the exact same technology that others are now using online right now to trick thousands, if not millions of people into watching their content. Last week, I was on a panel hosted by Sony Canada with a bunch of other YouTube content creators that you probably recognize, and inevitably the question was asked, how are you using AI? And you got the typical responses like, I'm using ChatGPT to proofread my scripts or help me generate ideas or come up with titles. Even YouTube right now, you can go into their dashboard and you can type in a prompt and it will spit you out a title idea, a mocked up thumbnail, and a concept for a video that YouTube thinks will do well for your audience. And no, I didn't do that for this video. This video was just kind of inspired by some of the conversations that I've been having recently. And at that Sony discussion, that panel I was a part of, my friend Chris made a really interesting analogy, which was, if you look at all of the work that could be done, there are easy tasks at the bottom, there are medium tasks, and then there are hard or impossible tasks. If you add AI into that mix, those easy tasks just get taken over by AI. You don't even need to do them anymore. Those medium tasks now become easier tasks with AI, and those hard tasks and impossible tasks either now become possible or just become those tasks that you do every day with the assistance of AI. So let me know down below if there's a task that you recently discovered that was made easier with AI. I know there are a ton of tools for music, for sound effects. If you have like bad audio, you can throw your audio, with wind noise into like a denoiser and basically clean it up without having any of those artifacts visible, which was literally something that only a few years ago would have been impossible. But who and what will be replaced? What's in that bottom tier of easy tasks and easy content that AI will inevitably replace? I've already seen about a dozen other videos this week that use that same Google VEO3 technology that, unless you knew and were looking for AI, like you've clicked this video knowing it was about AI, but if you're just casually scrolling, there's that saying that, we just kind of glance at content, we don't actually dive deep and think critically anymore. And so those videos that have been generated with this new Google technology and other technologies like it are very easy to use to trick an audience. If you're over on Threads or you're on Twitter, you've probably seen a post that was like so extreme where maybe it like put a political opinion against another opinion, or it said, Canon versus Sony, or, I really like pineapple on pizza, and you see that and you don't like pineapple on pizza. So you come in because you just have to comment to get because you're angry, you're mad that anyone could think differently. And this same methodology is now being used to generate videos with something that looks like 99% real if you're not using a discerning eye and being critical in the way you think about it. And so you get a video that, would otherwise no one would care about getting millions of views and thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of comments. So that extreme content, that rage bait content is going to be made even more extreme to the point where we just, as regular people filming in a regular space, in reality, simply can't keep up with the extremes of AI. One of the core values of my channel, and something that I mention at the end of every video, is to grab your camera, get out, and go shoot photos. And that's all part of like the human experience, about not just like, reading specs on a spec sheet, or, pixel peeping, or just, listening to what I have to say. It's about actually getting out and having those everyday, genuine photography video experiences. And I think with new technology, going from film to digital to just like, having your phone that has a camera on it, the photography experience has been democratized. But I'll talk more about that in a bit, because I think there's another tier of content that is ready to be replaced by AI. And I know I'm guilty of this, and so try not to judge me too hard when I say this, but lists or Google searching lists. Like whenever you have something that is, 5 tips for this, or 3 tips for this, or the, 10 best tripods, those types of things you can just like type into Google, or maybe you do, like the Google Pixel versus the iPhone, which one is better, or you ask some specific thing that you need to know, and the Google Gemini AI, gives you that answer right at the top, because it's read the 10 21st articles and basically summarized it for you. And so I want to be more conscious of the content that I'm creating, where it's not just providing empty statements, like, here's a spec on a spec sheet, or here's one thing versus another, but I haven't actually tested it, because let's be honest, AI also hasn't tested it in the real world. There's no way for that to happen yet. So as creators, you can future-proof yourself a little bit by saying, here is my lived experience. Here is the thing that I have to say about the thing that you're asking me. There is a serious risk of you being replaced if you are a creator that has nothing to say. And I don't mean this in a mean way, but there are a lot of channels, a lot of pages out there that kind of just follow the trends. So whether that's a TikTok page that is just taking trending audio and, dancing to it, or pointing to some text on the screen and never actually giving your own opinion, or never actually imparting some sort of value, then you're basically doing exactly what AI is doing. You're just regurgitating something that someone else has already come up with. So make yourself difficult to replace. Back in the film days, maybe film was a little bit more challenging. You didn't have as many photos to take. It was a process to develop them where you had to wait, to get them back. But then digital cameras came out, and it was like, oh my gosh, I can take as many photos as I want because memory is unlimited, or as long as I have memory space. And then phones came out, and suddenly we have 1 camera, 2 camera, 3 camera. I have a webcam, I have cars and with cameras and rear top side cameras everywhere. Basically, everything has a camera in it, to the point where image generation is fully democratized. And then AI basically becomes another iteration of that. But there is a type of content creation, or I'll just talk about it in terms of like being a type of photography or video, that 100% is safe. Or if you can kind of figure out ways to like fuse this with what you're doing, it will make you safe and non-replaceable by AI. And I'll just give it this blanket term of documentation. So if you're a photographer who captures things like real life events, or weddings, or like couples shoots, or anytime there is a real life thing happening, you're taking photos of it, then 100% AI is not gonna replace that. Like if you're shooting a wedding, you can't have AI take photos of your wedding. It might be able to assist in the sense that there's some AI technology built into maybe like the cameras, in the sense that how, maybe it edits them or frames them or calls them or does all of that, but it doesn't take away from the fact that you as a human, there still needs to be a physical camera inside a physical space that captures that real life event. And the same thing for filmmaking. If you are a documentary filmmaker, there are going to be real life events that need to be captured. Because we are very much a visual society. As much as we, touch the world and smell the world and taste the food around us, we're still very much driven by our sense of sight. At that Sony event I was at last week on the panel, when it came time for me to kind of talk about how I felt about AI, the point that I made was that you need to make yourself difficult to replace. If the content you make can easily be made by another human, then just as easily it can be made by an AI. If all you're doing is regurgitating information that you found online or you found from someone else, or in my case, I tend to be guilty of doing a lot of like tips where I'll share something that I know that's like a setting or a way to take a specific photo. Now, obviously, as much as possible, I'll throw in real life photo examples, which, someone else can't necessarily replicate it. They could do it in their own way, which I think is still very valid. I've never been someone who is like super creative that can just, imagine something from nothing. A lot of you are, which is awesome. And some of the best, most creative people I know can just kind of like poof, imagine something from thin air. But I've always kind of needed to see an example, which I can then like take and not copy, but turn into something that is my own version of that. Which is really about putting that personal touch and that personal factor onto that piece of content. So to make yourself safe from the AI apocalypse, make yourself irreplaceable or impossible to replace by actually having something to say. Have something that is worth saying. Make your viewers, your audience, your clients, whoever it is that you're trying to appeal to, have a reason, have a want to tune in and hear what you have to say. I think of all the camera reviews, all of the tech reviews that come out when a new product gets launched, and every creator is putting out their video on like, this spec and this camera and this thing. And inevitably, there's a lot of crossover of information. I know the videos that I choose to watch. I might, watch a specific portion of it to learn about the resolution or the dynamic range or that new feature. But at the end of it, the part that I really want to see is what that specific creator had to say based on their experience with that camera compared to other cameras, compared to, their just overall life experience with that product. Because they had something to say. They had an opinion that me, as another human, not an AI, actually cared about. And that's what it comes down to, including that human factor in everything you do. And again, like I say at the end of every one of my videos, it's about the experience. So make sure you grab your camera, get out, have a real life, non-AI experience, and go shoot photos.